Welcome, everybody. We are back with another episode of 8 Minute Webinar, this time with Melissa Yu from Sevenrooms, a very fun, fast-growing company in the hospitality space based out of New York. And we will get right to it. Melissa, first things first, introduce yourself, your role, where you went to school, and then tell us briefly about Sevenrooms.
Sure. So my name is Melissa. I am our Director of People Success here at Sevenrooms. And the way I describe my role is really, if recruiting is kind of like sales in terms of talent attraction and hiring, my role begins the minute someone says yes to Sevenrooms, right? And so everything from onboarding and their experience as a new hire to their growth and development and training as an employee to everything in between, and really being a Sevenrooms alum after the fact as well, is all that I'm responsible for these days. And so I went to college at NYU studying psychology.
It's rare, actually, that a degree plays so nicely into someone's career, at least in my opinion. It's like I think of
For
all.
sure.
So yeah, that's awesome. And tell us about Sevenrooms.
Yeah, so Sevenrooms, we are a hospitality platform for hospitality operators. So our clients range from everything from an independent restaurant to a large hotel in Vegas. Our mission is to help hospitality operators have more meaningful relationships with their guests, have more direct relationships too, right? Essentially, if you think of kind of the guest journey of going out to a restaurant, right? If you think about all the different touch points from making a reservation to being there, the experience, being seated, having your order taken and things like that, to going back there afterwards too, we kind of help operators connect the dots through all those touch points, the experience of being a guest at their place.
So digging into the roles here, give us an idea of what roles within Sevenrooms you hire early professionals for.
We hire for really all kinds of roles across all teams. So everything from a marketing associate to a sales development rep or customer success coordinator in those more client-facing roles, to software engineers, product and QA analysts. I think my 2 cents is when we don't really list things as like entry level, we want to give everyone a clear, fair shot at each role. So we do have, baseline kind of ideal experience or education. But all things considered, we really want to have a really clear and structured kind of approach to hiring.
Got it. And what locations do you typically hire for? Is it all in New York?
Yeah, so we're based here in New York, but we have a lot of remote teams these days actually, but we have sales teams across the country. And then we also have a small office in London as well.
Where's the best place candidates can search to find relevant opportunities?
Yeah, so it would be our careers page for sure. So sevenrooms.com/careers.
Can you walk us through the interview process?
Sure. So we definitely take a very structured hiring approach to our interview process. And so it would consist of a phone screen with one of our talent team members, and then a phone interview or video interview these days with our hiring manager, followed by interviews with some key stakeholders. Usually it's colleagues or leadership on that team to give you a full kind of picture of what that team's about too.
How do you recommend students best prepare for an interview at Sevenrooms?
It's a really good question. Honestly, the same way that any other person would prepare for an interview, right? And for me personally, it means doing your homework, doing your research. And if that's researching the company, any recent articles or any recent industry trends, to looking up the interview panel on LinkedIn and perhaps their backgrounds, their educations, their networks. So definitely coming prepared so you're not wasting really your time as a candidate and really doing your full kind of due diligence and sharing your story, right? So sharing your story, your point of view, your passion for hospitality. And then I guess afterwards, definitely following up with your interviewers. So closing the loop is, I think, a great asset when it comes to like sales roles, for instance. So closing the loop with a thank you note in a very timely kind of top of mind way, usually within 1 or 2 days, is really, I think, always a nice kind of way to stay top of mind for us.
What is the first thing typically that you believe your team looks for on a resume?
So I'll speak personally, even though I don't recruit per se these days.
Sure.
But for me, I always look for some kind of growth or progression or commitment. Looking for, growth forward or upward is always the thing that I think catches my eye.
Right. And are things like, is GPA important?
It's not a thing that we look for. It's one factor, but it isn't, I think, the full picture or full story for sure.
And how would you recommend a student approach the objective on a resume? Should they eliminate it? Should they keep it in the standard format we're all used to? Or do you think they should repurpose it?
So what I like to see, or what catches my eye on a resume, is if someone shares like their top line kind of story in a really crisp but compelling way, without the word objective, I should say. So just kind of a couple lines about really like who you are and why you're interested.
Like
that really speaks to me for sure. Yeah, exactly.
So similarly, what about cover letters?
Can I be honest? I don't read cover letters. Or let me qualify that. I generally only read them if they're super compelling and they're tailored to Sevenrooms or to the role itself or the team, and really the why, I guess, right? So aside from that, I'm more curious about kind of the story through your resume and learning more about you, over an interview, and less so about a kind of formal cover to your resume.
Are there any behaviors that you believe candidates should avoid, or red flags that you've seen in the interview or hiring process that candidates should avoid?
Maybe, so I guess I think about this question in a different way. What are the things that stand out, I guess?
Sure.
So I think the things that stand out to me or that I take notice of are when people are really authentic. So again, it kind of boils down to making a meaningful connection, getting to know us and vice versa, sharing your experiences, ensuring it's the right next step for you. People who show that kind of curiosity and taking this kind of interview of both sides seriously and with care really stand out to me.
Have you had any stories of people that have taken unique approaches as an example, or just kind of anything that fits that line of questioning?
Taking initiative obviously is I think just a huge skill when it comes to approaching interviewing. But things I've seen work really well, and if it were me, reaching out to people on LinkedIn, offering to get coffee on you since you're asking for their time and their experience and their perspective, honestly always works, because and I would reach out to someone that's like either is on that team or has a similar role that you're interested in to get to know them better. I've also found people who really leverage their college networks and professional networks that way. Obviously, that's great too. Great.
Melissa, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today on 8 Minute Webinar.
Thanks for having me. Great chatting with you, Tarek.